Deep in the bowels of old Nairobi, away from the skyscrapers, expressways and high-rise apartments, away from the wide boulevards and government offices and seats of political power, lies an old nondescript building. Unknown to many, this unremarkable building is of great historical consequence to Kenya. This the building where Mau Mau was planned. If ever there was a Mau Mau headquarters, this building would be it. This building was the newsroom for nationalist publications. It was also the building where leaders of the Kenya African Union summoned young men and told them point blank that a decision had been reached to fight the white man and that the hour had come for their greatest sacrifice.
All the organization concerning struggle were in Kiburi House. Even the office of Jomo Kenyatta was in Kiburi House. Therefore, everything was coming from there.
The building's name is Kiburi House. It is nestled in Kirinyaga Road, an entrepreneurial street in the Nairobi downtown that is famous for its teeming enterprises and hustling that makes Nairobi one of Africa's great commercial centers.
Mageta wa miro Arabia session ya tonga gwa bitaka na mpio wa tiganyo ala mikinduri no ali chairman na mtu atawa bena ndikaombele ali secretary kya tigai kwenda mwana ke wako dia na giana ana ke akao etawa ana ke andire giti kitu kaliu kunyankani wakili azuri na mama kenyankani ya Kiburi House. Na kuni kutwa twale na tubuku twako thoma tukithomere kwa ni mamto wito chinyoneko na muranga mto twetaga ujumbe wa muranga na manyite to na Kenyatta kagia
itago mamisa wa Kamau na ni chairman ni current chairman wa Kenya Fuel and Bulk Supply Company. Kambuni ino ya Kenya Fuel kana kiama kia ngũ na makara kia formirwo 1946. Ni athuri atano metagwo Richard Macharia na Magoto wa Kimani na Kiburi Thũmbĩ na Nathan Yeri Kavadha na Edward Kafuwe. Lengo rĩao rĩarĩ rĩa gũthondeka kambuni na wĩra wao warĩ wa throwback kana makara. Nĩ makũragia mĩtĩ na kũrĩa gwetagwo Eldoret na area icio cia Kericho nĩ makomberete mĩgũnda kũu tondũ mahandaga mĩthandũkũ magacoka mageka atĩ makaruta magoko magathondeka rangi wa iratũ. Iyo nĩyo yarĩ aim yao. Nĩ marĩ na marori mao na ngari. Ũcio rĩu nĩguo wĩra ũrĩa marutaga. Magĩthiĩ ũguo makĩrutaga wĩra na makĩandĩkithia members nginya hĩndĩ ĩrĩa kwambĩrĩirie hĩndĩ ya wĩhũge up to 1951, 52, 53 nĩguo kwagĩire wĩhũge na indo icio ciothe rĩu ikĩhana ta ciambĩrĩria gũthũkanga. Kahinda-inĩ o kau nĩ makoretwo magũra nyũmba ĩno ĩtagwo Kiburi House ino niyo yari nyumba ya mbere ya mundu muiru thiini wa Kenya yaguritwo 1950 na niyo yari nyumba ya mbere ya mundu muiru.
As you elbow your way along Kirinyaga Road and pass hardware shops, petrol stations, and shops selling motor vehicle spare parts, it is hardly possible to imagine that on this street stands a building that was once the headquarters of the Mau Mau movement that would change the history of this country forever.
Kauri ya wabici ciao ciahingirwo 1950 kuria Government Road. Wabici ciao ciahingwo mokire riu guku ni kuri mambiriirie riu kunyitana riu na Kenya Fuel riu makiambiria riu guthondeka like a political party.
Uguo Kenya Fuel na kaucia ciarutaga wira undu umwe.
Ciarutaga wira undu umwe. Tondu ona the late Jomo Kenyatta atwarwo na kuria Kabenguria fundraising na mbeca cia wakiri na all correspondences ciekagirwo thiini wa guku wabici guku nikuo kwari wabici ya nene.
After all, such historically important buildings are often documented and officially gazetted as national monuments and over-designed brochures printed to inform visitors and tourists about it. It turns out that Kiburi House is more or less a forgotten relic, an abandoned memory as far as official history is concerned, a nondescript building relegated to the trash bins of history, unmemorialized and unrecognized. As far as the Kenyan government is concerned, Kiburi House may as well not exist.
Well, they are made to a monument as such. We have tried to write to them. Matimitu a monument. Matimami to a monument. Kuri mwaka wa 1965, thuria makirikuo ni mandikire Attorney General marua makimuria uhoro wa damages cia kambuni iria ciekirwo uhuru wa Kenya ukiruirwo na kuma hindi iyo matiacokirie marua ona hario marua mangi mandikirwo mugathe Jomo Kenyatta andikirwo 1962 na Kenyatta agicokia marua na akiuga mateta ma athuri acio ni maneanwo kuri minister wa commerce and industry uria ugushughulikira athuri acio. Yeah. Akiona ni signature yake haha ya Jomo Kenyatta, mugathe the late Jomo Kenyatta, our late president. Akiandika marua akiuga athuri acio ni magushughulikirwo ni Minister of Commerce and Industry, and nothing happened to date.
Originally owned by the estate of Colonel Ewart Grogan, a Kenyan settler who is remembered as the first recorded human to walk the entire length of Africa from Cape to Cairo. Kiburi House was purchased in 1950 by the Kenya Fuel and Bark Supplying Company at a cost of 80,000 shillings. The Kenya Fuel and Bark Supplying Company was no ordinary company. The first African-owned company to be officially registered, it was founded in 1943 as the Kiambu Fuel Supply Company, with its tentacles spreading from Kiambu to Murang'a, Nyeri, and Embu districts.
Kumagia riu 1950s hau riu niguo mambiriirie kuhana ta igihana ta tari kambuni, makiambiriria riu kuhana tari political, makiambiriria riu kwandikithia members na mundu aguraga share imwe Murang'a, Nyeri, Meru, yani igema yothe tondu members iria twi nao mabuku-ini maitu ni members ta 6,000 na most of these members ni makipasite tondu aikorwo akiri mwanake 1950s ndugikorwo riu ukiriho. Most of the members are gone, koguo gutigarite few members na ithuĩ riu twakioereire kuma riu maithe maitu.
It was this expansion which compelled the members to change its name to the Kenya Fuel and Bark Supplying Company in order to reflect its national reach and aspirations. The founding chairman was Kiburi Wathumbi, a businessman from Githunguri, Kiambu. This is the man that the building was named after, hence Kiburi House. A number of people have tended to assume that the building was named Kiburi, the Kiswahili name for shadow, after its shadowy activities. But the fact of the matter is that the building was named after the chairman of the company, Mr. Kiburi.
And I want to tell you, Kiburi House does not mean what Kiswahili word Kiburi House. Kiburi House is a house which was named after a person called Kiburi, who was the chairman of the Kenya backers, Kenya Fuel and Backed organization. They were selling magoko and chako, and therefore they bought that house, and it was given the name of their chairman, Kiburi Wadhumbe.
Oh, so he's the one.
Then they gave us office in there, cow office.
While the company was apparently owned by wood fuel contractors and wattle bark agents, Kiburi House would go on to be the undeclared political headquarters of the freedom movement.
Kimathi met me in Kiburi House.
So you met at Kiburi House?
Everything that we were doing, we were doing together with Madenge wa Miroge, Stanley Madenge, because also Stanley was in the army, the British Army.
The owners of the company were members of the Kenya African Union, the only political party for Africans at the time. The party, Kenya African Union, had been formed by Harry Thuku in 1944, with its leadership comprising of Francis Kamisi as secretary, Albert Owino as treasurer, and John Kabaso, James Samuel Gichuru, Jimmy Jeremiah, Simon Malandi, Harry Nangurai, and S.B. Jakayo as committee members. Some of the leaders of the political party were also investors in the Kenya Fuel and Bark Supplying Company. In fact, the list of company shareholders includes many Kenya African Union leaders, including Jomo Kenyatta, who was shareholder number 937. His first wife, Wahu Kenyatta, was also a shareholder. She was shareholder number 1421.
Members mahanaga mambĩrĩirie marĩ anini no kũruti members mambĩrĩirie kũruti members nĩgetha mafome kĩndũ gĩtagwo like political party, tondũ matingĩahotire gũthondeka political party nĩ ũndũ wa mũthũngũ. Rĩu koguo yahithanagio na kĩrĩa na kambuni. It was the first company to be, it was registered in 1946. The first African company.
In the late 40s and early 50s, Kiburi House was a meeting point for the KAU leadership, although the leaders had a wide variety of venues where they could meet, including Harry Thuku's shop in Nairobi. Under Jomo Kenyatta, who had returned in 1946 and taken over the leadership of the party from James Gichuru, the Kenya African Union had become increasingly radical in its demands. For instance, on June 10, 1951, KAU demanded an end to colonial rule and independence within 3 years, which means that Kenya would have become independent in 1953 had the wishes of KAU leaders been met. Five months later, in November 1951, the party issued another demand through a document known as Land Hunger in Kenya that was presented by a party delegation to the United Nations Conference in Paris, France. This document, which called for an urgent solution to the land question in Kenya with regard to the Africans, is believed to have been drafted at Kiburi House. The same year, 1951, radical members of the Kenya African Union formed a central committee known as Muhimu, Kiswahili for important, which began to plan more militant methods to achieve independence. The Muhimu was led by Eliud Mutonyi, chairman, Isaac Gathanju, secretary, Bildad Kajia, Paul Ngei, and Fred Kubai as members. They began oathing members in a secret organization known as the Mau Mau and coordinated the activities of the secret organization. Kiburi House was also the official headquarters of a number of trade union organizations, political parties, and African newspapers. Because of its strategic importance to the liberation cause, no unidentified visitor was allowed inside the building, and you had to be screened before being given permission to enter. Trade unionists such as Markan Singh and Chege Kibachia had their offices at Kiburi House, as did Africa Mupya and Wiyathi, which were anti-colonial newspapers. The colonial government banned KAU in 1953, a few months after the declaration of a state of emergency in 1952, arguing that KAU was a front for a terrorist organization, Mau Mau. This effectively meant that Africans could not organize politically in any lawful sense. Wycliffe Work Waswa Awori, a prominent politician and journalist who took over the leadership of KAU party after the arrest of the party leaders, narrated to Oiwando Abur, the author of White Highlands No More, how the colonial government shot its way into Kiburi House and how KAU documents were saved.
Our salvation was in an African official from the Criminal Investigation Department. On the eve of the day KAU was to be banned, he drove to Kaloleni in a private car and walked to my house, L12, to tell me all about it, that the War Council had met and decided that KAU was to be banned the next day. With enough time at our disposal through the timely tip, I drove to the residence of Indian High Commissioner Appasahib Pant and told him in the presence of the First Secretary Abdul Rahman of what was going to happen to us. I was given their driver Mohammed, who is now working with the Kenya bus services, who drove me to Kundi Building, where the KAU headquarters was housed, then to Kiburi House, where we had our Nairobi branch. I got all KAU's important documents and the party flag. These were put in a diplomatic bag and were being flown to Nehru in New Delhi on the day the police were searching our offices for them. There was no keys for the Kiburi office when the police arrived, and they had to burst the door open with a bullet shot to force their entrance.
When they got in, they were unable to break into a strong safe that was cemented on the wall. It is said that one of the Mau Mau insiders made away with the keys to the safe, and it has not been opened since then. It is not known which leader took the key. What is clear is that the key has never been recovered, and the safe still holds its secrets. Could this safe contain some Mau Mau secrets?
Yale ya kuiga confidential document ona cia kao na some documents cia kambuni ciothe ciaigagwo thĩinĩ wa that safe twaina safe igĩrĩ ĩmwe mwena ũyũ na ĩrĩa ĩngĩ mwena ũrĩa ĩyo nĩyo ĩigagwo documents cia kao na ĩno ĩngĩ nayo ĩkaigwo documents cia kĩrĩa cia mau.
One would think that the contents of this old safe would be of interest to a nation state that was interested in the documentation of its history. Well, apparently Kenya is not. For this reason, the safe remains unopened 70 years later, and its contents are a mystery, just as the location of Dedan Kimathi's grave still remains a mystery. This is the amazing story behind that seemingly unimpressive building on Kirinyaga Road. Funnily enough, the Kenya Fuel and Bark Company still has an office at Kiburi House. The company has done its best to look for descendants of the original shareholders, but has traced just but a few.
Members ndo igatwita ngiri ta 6 na ona mugathe Jomo Kenyatta the late Jomo Kenyatta ningumuonia ritwa riake nake no member wa kambuni ino na gutwika ndakiriagira dividend ciake nituhotete gucokaniriria mabuku macio na tukageria gwika ati kugeria gwetha members aria magikorwo mari muoyo na so far most of the andu aria tuonaga ni sons kana daughters cia members aria members aria makuire, and so far we have about 2,000 acia ngiru tutiwe kuria mathire tondu ona address gutiari ako ni address iria ciaheanagwo PO 40 Horu kana PO Nyeri. Those are the last addresses cia mundu ri koguo rigo no gitindo kiandika marua ndangiona no members ni meyumagiriria magoka sons ceru cia members favale wa Kiburi tondu nyumba no ikaine ta Kiburi favale wa Kiburi twagithie thiini wa register to marifuku macio mothe twina muthe up to date matiathukirio ni mupeveru tugakiona ritwa riake.
Perhaps present-day Kenyan businessmen might want to invest in this company, modernize it, retaining it in the energy sector as per the vision of its founders, and ensure that one of Kenya's oldest brands remains active. Next time you are walking on Kirinyaga Road, be alert, look around, and if you spot Kiburi House, remember the strategic meetings that were held in this ungazetted monument. What great sacrifice was made by the Mau Mau nationalists who operated from here, and be grateful.
Tũngĩenda nyũmba ĩno tondũ nĩyo yahũranĩire wĩyathi na noyo yarũmbũranagia kũrĩa Jomo Kenyatta kũrĩa arĩ Kapenguria, all the documentation were being done here. Ona mbeca cia kũngania kũrĩha maloya ciĩkagĩrwo oro gũkũ na members acio they were fighting for the freedom of this country through this house. Korwo thirikari no ĩhote yoe nyũmba ĩno ĩmĩtue monument na ĩkĩrĩhe hihi members aria currently mekuo kanyamũ kanini no tũkene mũno ona ithuĩ tũtuĩke part and parcel ya gũtuĩka na ithuĩ no twakĩrũĩrĩire wĩyathi. Thirikari ĩkũrane Kiburi House tondu niyo arũĩire wĩyathi wa kĩrĩa wa bũrũri thĩinĩ wa Nairobi area.
Wega ikorio nĩ ciao